looking for a daddy twink, top verse pansexual, dirty gay. Welcome to No Two Gays About It, the show for the over 50 gay male, about the over 50 gay male, and hosted by two gay men over 50. Hello, I'm Tom Burke.
And I'm Michael Foley.
And today we're going to take a look at sexual labeling in the over 50 gay community. I mean, are we really still doing that? First of all, we're going to take a look at who, when, and why over 50 gays are still labeling themselves and labeling others. Next, we're going to ask the question, is labeling limiting or harmful to our aging community? And then finally, we're going to discuss and define some of the current and maybe some of the past sexual labels being used. So all of you bears, demisexuals, bottoms, and Neptunics, join us for the conversation as we take on sexual identity labeling.
Before we get started, we just want you to know that we love making the show, and we wouldn't be where we are without your support. So consider becoming a member of our Patreon today. And for as little as the cost of a cup of coffee per month, your fee goes directly to keeping this show on air, as well as getting you exclusive access to bonus content, access to episodes, and it's just our way of saying thanks. So head on over to patreon.com/no2gaysabout it and join our found family.
Let's talk labels. So as I said, later on we're going to go over the list of a lot of the different labels being used, but just for reference, to get us going, I think we need to just talk about some of the basic labels, and then that will set us off. So Michael, some of the basic labels are top, bottom, bear, twink. What are some of the other basic labels out there?
We have a new one called side. That's another one that's being used a lot. The list is really what you want.
Okay, all right, hold on. So all of our amazing listeners and people watching us on YouTube, get ready to start sending those comments in about, he can't be that dumb, he can't be that naive. Oh yes, he can. So
you know what you know when you know it. And
I'm going to know a lot more
exactly
after today, right?
So here you go.
All right, I get the bottom, I get the top. What the heck is a side?
That is the new term for oral. A side is somebody who does not enjoy anal sex, either receiving or giving, that they just would rather remain oral and do other things that don't involve anal.
So you'd have to lay on your side? Where does the side part come? I don't get it.
Maybe 69. That's the image I get when I think of side. It's like both people are laying on their side. And now where it comes from, I don't know. But that's
okay.
Or maybe you know how like a container has a top and a bottom and then has a side. I guess it could be whatever works for you, right?
Yeah. Okay. This whole thing is really overwhelming for me. So let's talk about our community, this over 50 gay community of ours, and the whole labeling thing. So who actually is out there labeling themselves or labeling other people?
I think on some level, everybody does. It's been something that's been around since people have been around. You know, you have to, in your own mind, create a box to put something in. And so you put a label on it, which doesn't always do the people involved a great service. In fact, it does them a disservice.
So basically, from what I know, this whole labeling thing is definitely used in all of the apps, the sexual apps, you know, kind of like a menu or a, you know, pick what you want kind of thing. Right? That's how.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody puts what it is they're looking for in their profile, and it's sort of a shorthand. You know, it's like going out to a restaurant. Oh, I want that. I want that. Oh, perfect. He fits the bill. So let me say hi.
Okay. So, all right. I get maybe a lot of the younger people, but are people over 50, are they still labeling? Are they still like putting themselves into the box? Didn't we want to get out of the box?
Oh, no, they're still in the box. In fact, it seems like it's more of a sealed box these days, where it's, I'm this label and I don't go beyond it, and not necessarily expanding your mind to some of the new ideas that have come down the pike.
even those of us older gay guys were, you know, we had a show that was all about having sex over this age and how it changes. So doesn't your box change? So crazy.
It depends on the day.
Well, actually, a lot of things that we talked about, the boxes are changing.
The box changes a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it gets a little more saggy, a little lower. But anyway, that went south really fast. No, I think, you get stuck in a mentality and you stay there.
Yeah.
That's just how human beings seem to operate. And I think the older we get, the less flexible we are. Me, I don't like labels. I never have. But I do realize it's a necessary evil in some arenas.
So in the whole app world, I mean, do you label yourself? Do you write down labels that you want?
I do not.
No. Okay.
I basically give a shorthand to who I am, what I'm looking for, but I don't label anything because on any given day, I'm open to many different things. And so to put something very specific doesn't work for me. But a lot of people do because, one of them is a bottom. Bottoms like putting bottom in their profile because that's all they do. And that works for them, but it doesn't work for me.
Okay.
But I'm assuming there's arenas in your life where you put labels on yourself that may not be sexual, but you refer to yourself as something specific, right?
Like what?
Like you're a teacher, like you're married, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, labels go elsewhere besides just sexual. And granted, in our community, most of the time it's referring to something sexual.
Well, let's talk about that too then. Okay, so these labels are in the sexual arena. Is there somewhere else in this community that people are using these labels for themselves? I know we just in the last couple of weekends, I think here they had the big bear weekend.
Right.
So it wasn't all sex. It was just like we're labeling ourselves as bears, right? And so it's not really a sexual thing. It's more of an identity thing.
Exactly. Like a bear or an otter or, a furry. They are labels that don't necessarily...
Hold on.
Stop right there.
Furry. What's a furry?
Those are the guys who enjoy dressing up in like
animal
costumes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, I know that.
Okay.
Wow.
And they have these things called huddles or something like that, where they don't have sex, but they all get together and they just sort of cuddle and interact that way. So is that partially sexual? Yes, but it's also non-sexual in a lot of ways.
But it's nothing that's labeled, though. It's just...
No, they're furries. That's what they call themselves.
Oh, we're back to the furry thing. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great. What about, and again, people out there, get ready to start writing in. What about the whole pronoun thing? Is that part of the labeling?
Without a doubt.
And I understand, and this is far more something important to the younger community. Those of us older people don't all get it, right? The whole pronoun thing and changing your pronouns. I mean, we didn't grow up that way. We're trying to expand our minds, but it's still something that a lot of gay men, especially 60s, 70s, and 80s, it's just a little doesn't make sense, right? The whole pronoun thing.
It doesn't have to them. But here's the thing. One of my best friends transitioned in her 50s. And obviously her pronoun changed.
Right.
And, I've been fortunate enough to be part of the drag and trans community since I came out. So I understand it differently than people who are my age and older. But here's the thing. We tend to create a box and put people in it using a label that is fitting for us. What we don't allow sometimes is for somebody to let us know they don't belong in that particular box and they feel more comfortable somewhere else. And I think for guys our age, there's a resistance in going, well, that's not how I think. Well, it doesn't have to be how you think. This person is sharing with you their experience and where they are, and just asking you to take them out of the box you put them in and to put them somewhere else. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I mean, no, there's definitely nothing wrong with that. But I think, especially the younger generation, has to give grace, a little leeway to the older generation who doesn't get it. And,
without a doubt.
Right. That's one of the biggest things we talk about every week, is how we have to give grace to not only ourselves, but to other people, you know.
And allow somebody to explain something that you might not understand without judging them. You know, just because somebody says, my pronoun is they, don't roll your eyes and go, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
Let them explain it to you, because trust me when I tell you, they are so willing to explain where they are. It's just open the door for the conversation. That's another thing we talk about all the time. It's just opening your mind a little bit and allowing yourself to think a little bit differently, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to take your advice and I'm going to ask a question of something that I don't really quite get.
Okay.
You, speaking of pronouns, you will talk about other gay men as she or girl, or, you know, that's something that I don't get.
Right.
So what's up with that?
I see there's a playful way of using a pronoun too. Because, you know, sometimes I'll say to a friend, hey, queen, or hey, fag, or hey, girl, because it's a play. And because I came out in the drag and trans community, that was something that was done all the time. You know, if you watch Drag Race, that's how they refer to themselves. It's just part of that culture.
Right.
And being exposed to it at a younger age, it's just something that's in my psyche at some times. And I'm like, hey, girl. You know, and it's funny. It tends to be older guys who will sort of sit back and go, oh, I don't like that. Younger guys, it's amazing. And maybe it is because of Drag Race and the culture has become so part of the pop culture that more people say it these days, because I have friends of many ages, and he's a cop, he's 29 years old, and let me tell you, nobody uses the word girl more than him.
Right.
So
I just kind of, you know, again, being an older gay man, and feel free to write in and tell me what an idiot I am, it's fine, but, you know, I'm a gay man, I am gay because I like men, and so the whole, like, you know, hey, she's doing this, she's doing, I'm like, I'm not a she, I'm a guy. Like, if you say those things to me, I'm not like, how dare you say that to me, or whatever, you know, whatever. But what does irk me is that when someone who's not in the community picks that up.
Yes, I agree with you.
You know, I'm sure we have talked about this, as every gay man has talked about, the, you know, young straight females who feel like they are bonded with us. Right. And it's like, oh, girl, you know, oh, like, ooh, look at you, she's all dressed up today. I'm like, no, yeah. no. You know, I don't feel... Because
I've had that experience being out in the bar. And I don't like it either, because you're stepping across a line where you're familiarizing yourself with me quicker than you should. And it's just like you told me a while ago, I don't get the girl thing and I'm not comfortable with it. So I really try to respect that and not, you know, call you and go, hey girl, what's up? You know, because you don't like it. And that's the thing. If we explain to someone like you just did that you're not comfortable with that, then you have taken yourself out of a larger box that I sometimes use as to blanket the community and put you in a place that makes you feel comfortable. And that's when sharing our thoughts about labels and how we identify is hugely important, not only to us, but for the community as a whole.
I think, you know, that brilliant thing you just said, but I think that's the thing, that we need to put whatever label we choose for ourselves on us, not to have someone else put a label on us,
Right.
which is, you know, like someone else putting on a she, hey girl to me, be like, no, you don't have the right to do that. If I want to do that, I will let you know that in a way, you know. But then that's the same thing as sexually identifying ourselves as well. You can't label someone else.
Right.
You know, you can't be like, oh, you're a bottom, you're a top, you're a side. That's my new favorite thing. We can only do that for ourselves. And it's not until we actually state it, put it out there, that someone else can then use it for us.
And, you know, there's a bizarre thing that happens in the bar community that obviously you're not privy to, but it's almost like shaming somebody because, you know, when Queen's dish, it's what they do. See, I use the word queen.
There's a label right there.
Homosexuals
Look at you, label
dish.
queen.
Homosexuals dish. And a lot of times they'll go, oh, she's a big bottom. And do it in such a derogatory and negative way that it's like, I will always call somebody on it and go, and there's a problem with that because? Like, what if that's what somebody enjoys, why you got to say it like that?
Right.
You know, it just is.
Okay. So then let's take that thought and take it into this new section that we want to discuss about, is this harmful? Is labeling harmful? Because that, being in a bar and someone going like, oh, she's some, you know, whatever, that's pretty harmful, hurting someone else, right?
Yeah.
But is this whole idea of sexual identity or labeling, is that not only hurtful, but is it harmful in a way?
I do believe it is. Because a lot of times it could be used as a weapon. Let's take cultural labels or ethnic labels that a lot of times they're used as a weapon. It's used to hurt somebody.
All of us over 50 gay men totally had a lot of labels flung at us as children that have stuck with us, which is why it's so surprising to me about all the labels, you know, that people are using all of these labels. I guess it's different, you know, the sexual identity label as opposed to the fag, sissy, pussy, all those kind of labels that were thrown at us. But I just still feel that putting ourselves into this box is a little bit limiting.
Putting ourselves into the box or putting someone else into the box?
Both,
okay.
I think.
Putting ourselves into a box, we have to realize that, you know what, the box may change tomorrow and I may feel like something else. And that's awesome because that's how life should be. It should be about growth, expansion, trying new things. And if you choose to define yourself as something else, awesome, more power to you, own it. When someone else puts us in a box, I think that's when it becomes dangerous because they're seeing us in a way that may be completely unrelated to who we are.
Right. Back in the day, you know, in the dark ages when I was single and dating, and we didn't have these apps where you put your menu on and like, these are the things I want, these are the things I do, these are the things I don't do. There was that whole kind of dance, you know, and again, yes, I am that naive. That's who I am. I never, you know, slept with people I didn't know. I dated, we courted, you know, I went through all of that stuff. And so there was that dance. And then that time when you finally do get together sexually, it was the exploring and figuring out, oh, I don't really like this. And he likes that, you know, and instead of going into it with like, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I don't do. Do you find that limiting sexually?
I do. I absolutely do. Because again, if you're so rigid and you put yourself into this box and don't allow yourself to experience new things, then you're cutting yourself off from a whole lot of different experiences that you never know. You may find them enjoyable. I'm from the school of thought that try everything twice. You know, because first time you just can't get your footing as well as you should. So try it again. There are definitely some things where you would try once and go, oop, nope, never again. But,
Yeah.
you know, if there's a little bit of intrigue and a little bit of curiosity, give it another go. And so what that, you know, you're not a top all the time, or you're not a bottom all the time, or you're not a side all the time. Just be willing to be flexible. And I have sort of come across a lot of people who aren't flexible. They'll label themselves as one thing, and that's it. And, you know, on some level, I'm like, well, if that works for you in this moment, because you never know. Because I find a lot of guys our age have said to me, I didn't start exploring being a bottom until I was in my 30s or 40s. And I'm like, that's awesome that you allowed yourself at that age to, you know, give something else a try, because there was a lot of shame involved in our sexuality. And when we were younger, if you were gay, that automatically implied in a lot of people's minds, especially the hetero community, that you were feminine. And that's not the case. Bottoming doesn't make you feminine. It doesn't take away your masculinity. Just like being a top doesn't make you more butch or more, you know, manly. It just is what it is.
So we have been getting I mean, seriously, the guys who are listening and watching us are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
You know, everyone is sending us all of their comments, sharing their stories with us. Michael and I love hearing from you guys, and especially that we are touching on the subjects that really mean something to you, which is great, because they mean things to us. But a lot of the comments we've been getting are, you know, about this over 50, over 60, over 70, you know, looking for relationships, not finding dating, you know, not wanting to be alone or lonely. But if you are putting yourself into a box saying, I only want this sexually, aren't you cutting yourself off from a lot of other guys who are out there who might be like the perfect guy for you, the relationship? Do you feel that way?
I absolutely do. You know, we talked about this on a previous show, where as we get older, sometimes things don't work. And to explore other avenues is not necessarily a bad thing, you know? And that, again, that makes your box a little bit bigger. Well, sorry, I can't. Sometimes I say things and then I'm like, oh, that was definitely the wrong terminology. But it might make your box bigger, you know? Who knows? But yeah, allowing ourselves to be open to new experiences and not be confined to the restrictions and labels that we put on ourselves is hugely important. So, and I got to say something about you, because you keep saying I'm naive and, you know, being apologetic. You know what? It's awesome to be naive and to ask questions. That's another label, naive. I'm naive about, you know, half of the shit that goes on the planet. I don't feel embarrassed or ashamed about it. I'm naive about what goes on in my own head at most times. But, you know, don't apologize for being something. Share it. And like Tom is doing and is saying, well, I'm going to ask questions. I'm naive, but I'm going to ask questions. That's what this is about, right?
Totally. I mean, I'm owning it. I'm putting it out there. I'm saying to you guys, it's just funny that, you know, we get these comments back of like, seriously, Tom. I'm like, yes, seriously, right? I want to read a letter that we got from one of our listeners or actually is watching us on YouTube. This was really important. This kind of one of the reasons why we were doing this show today about sexual labeling. So here goes. The million-dollar question is this. For decades, literally, we gay people were trying to free ourselves of labels. So it's mystifying why young generations seem to pin their entire self-esteem on compartmentalizing themselves. And although I don't get it, I'm fine with it. But when it crosses the line is when those same people tell us older generation gays that we are bigoted or whatever if we don't allow them to define us. Bingo, right? It's what we've been talking about.
Absolutely.
You can't label somebody else, and you can't fault somebody if they're not in your label world, or they're not labeling the way you label, or we're just all crazy individual people who happen to be in the same community. We're not all going to think the same. We're not all going to do the same things.
Absolutely. You can't label somebody a bigot or uninformed or unintelligent if they don't get something. It's your responsibility on the other side of that, if somebody's sitting in that place, to educate them. It doesn't take a lot. And a knee-jerk reaction and calling, oh, well, you're bigoted and you don't understand, is definitely not the way to go. I think it creates more separation within our community.
But I also agree with that letter too, where he was saying, like, for decades, we've been trying to get away from these labels, to not be identified as the sexual act. And yet that's what we're talking about. Everybody seems to I don't want to use the word everybody, but so many people in our community label themselves as a sexual act. I'm a bottom, I'm a top, I'm a whatever, a side, I'm a whatever, whatever, whatever. That's how I feel kind of limited by that. I also feel that you're cutting yourself off from some really great guys that are out there who might be also in their mid-60s, who are alone looking for a relationship, but, oh, I don't do sides, or I don't do whatever, you know? I feel the labels are just keeping us from other people. I don't know.
I definitely believe, you know, so our generation experienced life very differently than this generation.
Right.
You know, we had labels thrown at us that always implied something negative. What I feel like the younger generation is doing is owning it and creating their own. So I could see why, you know, folks like us who are older and have lived through very different lives have that tendency to go, I don't want to be labeled as anything, because most of my life, other people were labeling me and I didn't fit into that box and it made me feel uncomfortable. Did you, you know, when you were younger, I mean, obviously you experienced hate speech at some time, or at least were around, conversation where people were telling fag jokes. Yeah. Or, you know, how did you feel about that back then? As opposed I'm still
scarred from it. You know, we're all still scarred from that.
So you see, a younger generation now is looking at it as, I'm not going to allow somebody else to tell me what I am or define it. They're like, I'm going to own that.
I get that, but we're talking about guys our age who are labeling themselves sexually, and still identifying themselves as a sexual act, as opposed to, I'm a person, I'm meeting another person, let's get together and figure it out together, instead of like, oh, you don't do A, B, and C? No, I'm moving on to the next person. Yeah. Or, oh, you're a yellow. I'm sorry, I only do green. Oh, speaking of that, yellow and green, this takes it back to something else you taught me about, which was the handkerchief thing, the colors. Talk about labeling, and talk about people our age. What was that, in the 70s and 80s?
70s, 80s, yeah, it was huge.
70s, where people used handkerchiefs to say, this is what I do, this is what I don't do. That was, thank you, that was so much fun when you taught me all that stuff. I had to see a therapist for a couple of weeks afterwards. But, so that was like the precursor to now everyone on the apps who are using these labels, right? So yeah, this labeling thing has been around forever. And I guess it's going to go on forever. As long as we just label ourselves and don't label someone else.
Or ask, you know, if you are labeling somebody else, be aware of it. And then ask them, hey, you know, what do you refer to yourself as? It's
okay. So I'm going to ask you a personal question about using the apps. So let's say you're on the apps and you're looking to hook up with somebody, and you see that they're not, their A, B, and C isn't your A, B, and C. You just go right by that guy?
Unfortunately, most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and again,
do you feel like you're ever missing out?
It definitely thins the herd on some level, as opposed to like back in the ancient times when we were younger and you would meet somebody out in a bar or a restaurant or at an event, and you would learn about each other in the course of getting to know each other.
Yeah, right.
As opposed to, here's what I am, and like it or leave it.
Okay, so that's hooking up. What about the dating world? Do you put all your cards out on the table before you actually go on the date? Like, I'm a this, I'm a this, I'm a this, and I don't want this and that. Or is that something that organically you guys figure out together?
It's funny because I think a lot of dates grow out of the apps. So you're already armed with that information when you show up.
Okay.
Again, it's not something I share because I don't want to be defined as one thing, not only, personally, but also sexually.
Have you ever been on a date with someone that you didn't know, maybe got set up with them or whatever, and like right away they're like, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. What do you do? What's your labels?
I have not had that experience, and I'm
okay, good then.
Kind of glad I haven't, because I think it would be a turnoff. Because like you said, back when we were younger, there was this wonderful opportunity to sort of explore. And granted, back then, we may not have been into bottoming, but if you met somebody and you felt comfortable with them and that's where it went, it got to grow organically, right? Nowadays, that opportunity doesn't necessarily happen all the time.
Right.
Which makes me a little sad on some level.
So, I mean, that going back to this whole hurtful, harmful kind of thing, I just think the labeling is taking a little bit away from the magic of discovering somebody and figuring things out together. But it also takes a lot of that time. Did you ever date anyone where you were like, then you finally get together and you're like, oh yeah, we don't work sexually together?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A number of times.
Is it worth working through that?
It depends on the situation. Because there were a number of times where I absolutely did. But then there were a number of times where you really liked the person, but then when you realized your clothes were up, that there's a spark that's you can't really name, but it either happens or it doesn't, right? And sometimes it doesn't. But like I said, I'll always try things twice. It doesn't mean that, that's it. Sex didn't work. It wasn't great. I'm done. You try it again. And then, because a lot of times when you have sex with somebody the first time, I'm sure you guys experienced this when you guys got together, you and your husband, that it may not have been the greatest sex, but there was at least a connection there that you were willing to explore, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So what about not the sexual labels, but all of these other labels, the bear, the twink, the whatever. So does that stop you from getting to know somebody? If it's like, it says on their profile, he's a bear, and you're like, I'm not really into bears, so I'm not going to go see, meet that guy or whatever. Do those, I guess those are more like physical identity labels. Did they stop you from moving forward?
No. But if somebody identifies solely as that, and that's their community, more power to you. But I like somebody whose horizons are a little bit more broad. Yeah. And, identifying as one single thing is very helpful in order to form a community, right?
Yeah.
We all do that. It's like going to church. We have our community. We have the people we feel comfortable with. And so in some ways, like the bear community or the drag community or any other community within our community, you seek out your tribe, but you should also be willing to step outside of that and experience other tribes. And I think the older we get, it seems the less we want to do that because we're comfortable where we are.
But I would think that the older we get, we have to open up our view of other people because the pool's getting smaller, especially as we're aging. And who is out there if you're looking for relationships? Like maybe you're not into the bears, but there's this really great sweet guy who's hairy. Speaking of great sweet guys who are hairy, again, back in the dark ages, when I was single, I have absolutely no hair in my chest. I think I was kind of more into guys like that who weren't all that hairy, you know, probably into blonde guys because that wasn't me. I had really dark hair back then. I remember one of the first times that my husband and I were, not that we were doing it, we were like making out. And I happened to like pull his shirt back and look down and was like, holy, that's a lot of hair. I had never seen so much hair on somebody's chest before. And that was something that I was totally not into at all. Like that was not, but I am now. You know, I was like, okay, well, I really like this guy and let's go for it. You know, he's not that smooth, blonde, whatever guy that I thought in my head I liked. So I didn't, you know, the moment I saw that, I wasn't like, I'm out of here. You're a what? I mean, he wouldn't have been a bear back then, but you know, whatever the other thing is, I wasn't like, okay, I'm cutting you off because of this, the label I'm not into. And I think back to the whole thing of sometimes I think labeling is hurtful or harmful. It cuts us off from so many people.
And incredibly limiting.
Yeah, totally limiting. That's the thing. As you're saying, not only limiting sexually, but also limiting in just the person. You know, maybe they aren't your tribe, but try another tribe. You know, try somebody different. Try whatever. Yeah, I don't
right.
know about,
as we get older, that pool does get way more shallow. And,
yeah,
you know.
and the thing is, you know, the bears aren't going to be as berry anymore because, you know, we're all losing our hair anyway. So just be open to all kinds of things.
I guess fortunately, body hair seems to grow more as we get older. So from the neck down, you have hair sprouting everywhere, right?
No, I don't have that.
God bless
I'm still
you.
like, well, I mean, there's still time.
You know.
But I have talked about my new favorite friend, the tweezers, because those hairs are popping all over, like my ears, my nose, and no, that is not going to happen.
And that 7-foot eyebrow that one day you wake up in the morning and you're like, how did I not see that before? Why didn't anybody tell me?
Exactly. Yeah, so we need a label for that eyebrow hair. So good, labels. Yes, they are helpful. They save some time sexually, but they also can be pretty limiting. And again, bottom line, give someone grace, give yourself grace, and you can only label yourself. And labeling someone else is not fair. It's not appropriate. It's just not a kind thing to do.
Beautifully said.
So now I want to talk about some of the labels that are out there. Again, I don't know a lot of this stuff, so I want you to help me. You taught me today side, which is very cool, because now I'm going to be like out talking about, oh yeah, the side, you know, like
I got a woof from a side on Scruff.
Yeah, on Scruff. Look at me. Look how sexually, you know, hip I am. So what are some of the other labels that are out there?
All right, so I got a moniker from the Stonewall website that if we threw in all the letters, this is how it would read. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's LGGEDTTTIQQAAPP. Now, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. So I think I'm going to stick with LGBTQ plus. How do you feel on that?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Is a lot. So what do these other things mean?
So we have bi, right?
Yeah.
We have something called aromantic, which is somebody who is not into sex at all and they don't want a romantic relationship with somebody at all.
Okay.
Which I would also refer to as asexual. But I'm wrong. You know why? Because asexual people seek out romantic relationships, right? I did not know this until very recently.
Okay.
And there you go. My little door just got a little wider, right?
Okay.
That I went, that makes sense. Now I know why there were two terms for that. We also have something called fluid. I'm assuming you know what that is.
I know what fluid is.
It's sort of, the new term for bisexual.
Right.
But I could see why people use fluid, because bisexual is very black and white, right? For a lot of us, that mentality is all about sex. Where if you're fluid, on any given day, you could be attracted to either sex or a trans individual or someone who doesn't identify as one particular thing. And that's okay. There's a lot of gray with fluid, right?
Sure.
Do you know what omnisexual is?
Omni? The best. I don't know. What is omni?
It's sort of in the same realm of fluid, but it's more geared toward sex than it is romance.
See, what's happening out there to all of our listeners who are over 70, their heads are just
spinning.
about to explode.
It's like, it's too much. When I read that moniker, it was too much, right?
Right.
So, the bottom line is if you want to learn something, ask. And I'm just going to go back to the aromantic and asexual. I learned something new. And that's kind of awesome. And now if somebody said, I'm asexual, I would go, oh, I know that you're looking for romance, that it's not just about a sex act for you, right?
So let me ask you some, not sexual or romantic labels, but some of the body identity labels. So I know what a bear is. I know what a twink is. There's a twunk. What's a twunk? Do you know what a twunk is?
I don't know what a twunk is.
I've heard that.
I thought it was in the back of your car. I couldn't resist.
For Cindy Brady.
So
what about an otter? Do you know what an otter is?
Yes, it's somebody who is in the bear community, but they're not necessarily large. Or
so they're
hairy. Or
okay.
as hairy.
All right, so that's what my husband probably was back when I met him, an otter. Do you know any other kind of...
But bear doesn't necessarily have to be someone's size either. It could be someone who's overly hairy and just a big guy.
Yeah.
But again, it's how they perceive themselves. And if, they weigh 180 pounds and consider themselves a bear, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself something? Do you label your body type?
In a healthy way? No. In an unhealthy way, like I said, I'm afraid of sometimes what goes on in my head. But no, I don't label myself anything. I never really have.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share something very quickly. When I first came out, there were a lot of people in the gay community who would constantly say to me, oh, you're going to be married and have kids by the time you're 30. And it made me so angry. And, because back then they were like, oh, you're too butch to be gay. And it irked me because I'm like, here you are isolating me from the community that I finally found and want to be part of. And you're telling me I'm not going to be part of it in 5 years. So that, believe it or not, left a little bit of a scar
because
on
someone
me.
Put a label on you.
Yeah. It's like, right? I'm not straight. I know I'm not straight. Why are you telling me I am? And
did you
irksome.
Identify as butch?
I still don't. I'm gonna use that word that you don't like. I sometimes am like, oh my God, I'm such a big girl, because just some of the things I do crack me up, and and it's not necessarily a feminine trait, because again, I grew up in the drag community, and it was referred to as something very different. So I don't label myself. I never have.
Okay.
If I was forced to, I couldn't. Because I am, like all of us, we're a lot of different things, right? And I think the more comfortable we get experiencing different things, we tend to get out of the box and are willing to walk around. It's like a snail or a hermit crab that changes its shell as it grows, right? Hopefully that's us. That we just, oh, I don't need this shell anymore. Let me go find another one.
Well, my shell is definitely growing. My pants are really tight today. So,
And you know why it's growing? Because you are amazing.
Stop eating.
Well, there's that. That would be the negative thought that was going on in my head for myself. You're one of those amazing people that are willing to ask questions and to be open-minded and be non-judgmental. And I think that's the key to a happier life as we get older.
Okay. So what's our big conclusion here about labeling?
That it's a necessary evil at times. You want to label yourself? Awesome. Be flexible to changing the label if need be. But don't put other people in your box. Ask them where they fit and allow them to be that. Like you said earlier, it's about giving other people grace, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like if you want to label yourself a she-bear, coconut, whatever, bottom, cis, whatever, go for it. You do you. You know, I might not understand it. I might not get it, but it's not me. So go ahead. You do you.
And if Tom asks you what it is, explain it to him. We all want to know, because then it makes for a happier life. Oh, I get you. I get you, and I respect you, and I respect that you want to be referred to as that. It's like the pronoun they, right?
Sure. Or the pronoun she. Like if you sometimes say to me like, you know, oh, she's whatever, to me, I'll be like, well, that's Michael. And that's his, you know, but I'm not going to be like, how dare you say that to me, you know, because that's your world and your labeling world and whatever. So,
but here's the wonderful thing. You've told me that doesn't sit well with you. And I've really tried. Sometimes it just slips out. And, you know,
well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I know that you're not doing it in malice or to make me feel bad or whatever. So yeah, that's you being you. Great. Go ahead. So there you go. Great. Yeah. Labeling. Get out of the boxes, people. I know you want to put yourself in one, but I want everyone out of boxes so they can all experience, you know, things that you might be passing up.
Or learn something you didn't know yesterday.
Exactly. All right. So all of you people out there, I want to hear from you. Let Michael and I know your thoughts on labeling. Do you label yourself? Do you label others? And how do you actually feel about all of that? Is it hurtful? You know, let us know. And definitely by letting us know, that lets us know that our shows are touching you guys. And that's what we're here to do. We want to be the voice of this over 50, over 60, over 70, over 80, 100-year-old gay guys. We want our voices to be out there and to talk about things that are important to us. So leave us those comments. If you, wherever you listen to us on a podcast, leave us a great review, leave us a comment. Not only does that help us know that what we're doing, we're on the right track, but it also gets us out there in the whatever matrix world so that other gay men who might not be in a big community, that they will then hear, you know, be able to find us and join our conversations. How else can people contact us, Michael?
You guys could reach us across social media at the moniker No Two Gays About It. And that is everywhere on your iPhone or your Android. And you could also send us a personal email if you don't want to leave a comment on a public page at no2gaysabout@gmail.com. And you could also join us on Patreon and become a supporter of our show. And I'm going to send a quick shout out to Ted Zalewski, Cesar Montero, and David Tiley, who have joined us at our executive producer role. We thank you so much for the support and the encouragement and the comments.
Totally. And all of you people who are watching us on YouTube, thank you so much. Make sure that you hit like and subscribe, and also that little bell. So whenever we have a new episode out, that you will be notified and you can join in on that conversation as well. Michael, I'm going to ask you to do one more thing for me. Our amazing supporter, Cesar. Can you say his name again? I love the way you say his name.
Cesar Montero?
Yeah, that's great. Gave a little spin. I hope Cesar enjoys that. Hope he has that spice in his life as well. So that's awesome. Anything else we need to talk about before we can get out of here and let these people go on with their lives?
I think we're absolutely good. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for being willing to ask questions and just explore this topic.
Yeah, thank you for enlightening me in the world of sexual labeling. out there in the world, in our over 50 gay community. All right, great. Well, thank you all of you for listening. And Michael, until next time.
Until next time, Tom. And thank you guys for listening.
Thanks again for watching our video. Don't forget to subscribe and watch some of our other videos.